Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Fly With Us podcast. This podcast is bringing the art of conversation, self-love, self-care, mental health care and protection, life lessons, love lessons, and everything in between. Today we are joined by a special guest, Miss Coach V. I'm Lady Bounce.
And I am Ace Slade.
All right, and welcome, Coach V, to our show. We're so excited that you are
Yes!
here.
Thank you, Candy. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Candy.
All right, Sister Slade, you're going to kick us off with our mindfulness minute.
Our mindfulness minute, always so fun to do them. If technology acts right today, it's not. Here we go. Our mindfulness minute today is go and be, go and do. The quote says, I live with the past every day, but I need not let it determine me. I continue to believe in the possibility of new life. With great intelligence, courage, and strength, I forge a new future for myself and others. The text reads, twitch your little finger and the planets change in their courses. You can go on and do, you can go and be, but do not fear making mistakes. You couldn't be more perfect. But before you go back to being your amazing self, sit for a few minutes of rest. Allow the tension and worry of the day to dissolve. Stop chastising yourself with critical thoughts. Stop thinking you haven't done enough or that you haven't been enough. Take your leave of the mental turbulence and nurture the peace that you already have within you. Let it grow and let the disturbance fade away. Let yourself be awash in peace as you sit and as you rise. So we are about to rise, child. That's our mindfulness minute for this week. Go and be, go and do.
I like it. So, Coach V, welcome to our show. And for those of you who don't know who Coach V is, first of all, I don't know why you don't know who Coach V is. But anyway, she is a life coach, an entrepreneur, a mother. She is an author, and she has the wonderful God-given gift to heal herself from mental health issues without medication. So that in itself is to be applauded, okay?
Yes.
So, Coach V, talk to us a little bit about your previous struggles with mental health issues.
So first things first, we know that in the Black community, quote unquote, mental health don't exist. It's either a demon, it's either go pray it away, it's either, somebody just a little off, let them be, don't mess with them. That's how statistically mental health has been treated for generations within the Black community. I did not know, though, that I was still, as a teenager, living in that generation. And what I mean by that is my mother, peace and blessings be upon her, when she discovered that I was having some mental, emotional challenges, she reacted the way that she was taught to react. So there wasn't a loving kumbaya moment. There wasn't what I was looking for, which was attention and care and healing. It was none of that. So before I explain how mom reacted, let me share what led up to the event so we can kind of get some perspective. I was raised mostly in a single parent household. I was old enough to remember my dad severely beating my mom, but I wasn't old enough to understand why or was it supposed to be this way. I just knew my dad hit my mom. That's it, point blank, period, end of story. So when they got divorced, I remember my mother always being fearful. We moved a lot. I remember running through woods to get away from my dad. I remember begging and pleading to go see my dad at my paternal grandmother's house, and my dad just like straight jawing my mom as soon as we stepped off the bus. So again, I remember these events, but I wasn't old enough to understand about domestic violence and about alcoholism. And I wasn't old enough to understand all that. I just knew my mama beat my dad. And that's a significant point of the story, which I'll share in a moment. So growing up, I always felt different, meaning I always felt ignored. I didn't feel like the favorite child. I was treated as if my thought processes were way out at Pluto somewhere, not just academically, but just day-to-day conversations in my family. And I never understood why. I'm like, what? Hold on. I'm going to one of the top schools in Cincinnati and as well as the state of Ohio, and one of the top 3 high schools nationwide. Why is my thinking off? You know? So I always had these feelings, even from young, of not belonging or feeling different. And when I tried to talk to my mom about them, I was always brushed off. Again, too young to understand, but I was always brushed off. Always the biggest 2 labels I had growing up was I was sensitive and I had an attitude. Those were like my second and third names growing up. And I didn't understand what I was doing to be sensitive and or to have an attitude. But that is always what I was told. So I started writing letters probably as early as second or third grade that I want to run away. I would draw pictures of me with a little stick and a little red and white handkerchief, and because I saw it on cartoons, and and I'm just like, I want to run away. But it was funny because I would write these letters and place them on my mom's bed and wait for her to find it. So I would go in the living room for family time, and then I would get afraid of getting beat when she found it. So I would make a bathroom trip and run and get the letter and take it to school and throw it away the next day. And this happened for years. Again, so from about second or third grade to maybe 6th grade, I engaged in this behavior. So again, I always felt like I was different, something was off, so to speak, but it was never addressed, it was never talked about. And one year I found out, my sister and I found out that when I was born, my parents weren't married. So I had my mother's maiden name. And after they got married, I had my dad's name. And once that tea spilled, my sister used to tease me, and you ain't even a real Mitchell, and you wasn't born this way. And that made me feel horrible. So I would cry, and instead of, again, that love and attention, I would get popped. Like my mama was quick with her hands. Like, she from Mississippi, she was quick with her hands. So what that taught me was to hide my emotions, that whatever I be trying to share is not welcome here. So I started to internalize a lot of things. So going into junior high and high school, when different things were happening to me, I internalized them. I didn't trust other people because I was raised, you don't tell nothing about what goes on in this house, period.
Right.
And then I couldn't talk to my mom. So it was like all these different feelings and emotions that, hindsight, I probably could have been talked through. I never had that opportunity to do so. And then my mother joined a very extreme religion where everything was just straight shut down, locked down. We couldn't celebrate any more holidays. We couldn't go on any more field trips or school activities. I had to quit band. Like, it was such a dramatic change in my life. And so I had to internalize that as well and practice this religion and follow this religion that was supposed to be the truth. But then my mama at home, cussing us out and beating on us. So I'm like, again, internalizing all of this stuff. So at the age of 16, I used to work at a convenience store, United Dairy Farmers, and, they had aprons. I don't even know if they still wear them to this day, but I know I had an apron, and I had a collection of phone numbers in the apron. Men would always hit on me. I was the type to not try to disappoint people, even though I had boundaries. So I would take their phone numbers and just would never call. And my practice was to put the numbers in my apron and to throw them away before I got on the bus to go home. I didn't do that one day. So my mom was already on a tirade, having whatever she had going on in her life as an adult, reached in my apron pockets, found these phone numbers. And of course, she thought I was immediately having sexual activity. She thought I was going around. Like, it immediately, there was no questions asked. It was immediately, I was out here being promiscuous. And she blessed me out, like cursed me out, spittle flying on my face. Like, it was horrible. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I'm in my mind like, I'm still a virgin. Like, don't call these dudes, beat myself up. Why didn't I throw this away? Why did I forget? Oh my God. Like, I'm beating myself up while my mom's letting me have it. So after she got done, letting me have it, she left. And I think I had like an hour before I had to be to work, and I caught the bus to work. And so I think just years and years of just holding in emotion, internalizing, feeling I'm not good enough, not having an outlet. I think it all just culminated. And I don't even know where I got the idea from, but on that day, I grabbed a knife and I began to cut my arm. And I ended up making 10 cuts before the bloodletting shocked me back into reality. It was horrible. So then I got scared again, because I was scared of my mom. I was terrified of my mama. Peace and blessings be upon her. But I was scared of my mama growing up. So all I could think was not call 911. All I could think of, hide it, just, wrap it up, clean it, because I did not want to get in trouble for doing that particular act. So I cleaned it off, wrapped it up, caught the bus to work, and acted like nothing happened. Blamed it on a sports injury, blamed it on cheerleading. Whatever excuse came out of my mouth at the time when I was questioned, that's what came out of my mouth. And I was able to hide it for 2 weeks until fate had it that my mom found out. And you got to think about deep cuts, 2 weeks, not medically treated, the body healing itself, but how gross it looked after 2 weeks. And so again, instead of me having a loving kumbaya, baby, why would you do this moment? I apologize for coming at you so harshly. How can we fix this? I had another yelling match. You crazy, and they're gonna put you in a white coat, and you're gonna have to take pills, and this is what you want. Why would you do something so stupid? I mean, just horrible, horrible experience. So I made a mental note, like, okay, that cry for help didn't work, and I'm not ever gonna get help. So for the next 2 years, I just plotted on graduating from high school, moving out on my own, and just not speaking to my mom ever again, forever and ever, amen. Like, that was my plan for the next 2 years. In the meantime, I put a pause on harming myself, and I have to say a pause because when I moved out at 18, I resumed the practice. It's like it never went away. I just put it on pause and just focused on working, stacking my money, and moving out. So there was no thing about mental illness. There was no thing about getting help. There was no thing about, here, let's go and pray. It was just straight, you dumb for doing that. You gonna kill yourself. They gonna lock you up, and I'm gonna let them do it type of situation. So until my early 20s, I continued to practice, and I didn't get diagnosed with a mental illness until 7 years later, at the age of 25. And I really think that was out of necessity because I was racking up 72-hour holds. And for those who may not be familiar with it, if you're ever taken to psych ER and you're exhibiting behaviors or language to harm yourself or to harm others, that's an automatic 72-hour hold. You got to stay there for 72 hours for them to make sure and monitor that you cool, you ain't gonna go off the deep end. They set you up to talk to a psychiatrist. If you ain't talking right, they extend your hold. And I have been in and out of the 72-hour hold so much, I knew how to straighten up and speak correctly to get out early. So in 2005, when my dad passed and I'm hysterically crying and talking crazy and acting a fool, and my best friend called 911 and 911 came and took me to the psych ER, they said, she done been here too much. We can't let her leave without diagnosing her with something and giving her some pills. Like, she been finessing us for years. Like, what we gonna do? So that's how I ended up getting a diagnosis for manic depression.
Wow.
It is so much. It's just a lot. It's a lot.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of layers there, and it
absolutely.
It sounds familiar of what we do in the Black community, and I don't know if that's because it's just one of those things that we just talk about it, or we don't know how to talk about it. I found from what I do for a living, which is being an educator, a lot of it is deep rooted. Like, the parents have issues.
Absolutely.
And they had issues, as a youngster, and they were treated the same way. And so then when their kids start to exhibit these same kinds of behaviors, they just don't know what to do with them because, like you said, it's taboo. We don't talk about that. Just go pray. And there are some things that, prayer is amazing, but you have to do some proactive kinds of things,
And we had, and I like to use the term, somebody sending me stuff and messing up my screen. Let me get that out the way. Okay. I like to use the term, which I'm sure you ladies are familiar with, generational curses. When I mentioned the history between my mom and dad, that was also on top of my mom being put out the house at the age of 12. And her watching her mom, so my maternal grandmother, being beaten down in Mississippi. And, it took me until my mom passed in 2008. So in 2012, is when I began what I call my journey of awakening. And a lot of people did. 2012, for some reason, was cosmically a year that people just woke up, found themselves, returned to consciousness, and I was a part of that group. And so that let me accept, because I think I was aware of it, but I wanted to continue to play victim, so I wouldn't accept it. But in 2012, I accepted that my mother did the best that she knew how to do based upon her having trauma that was not healed and her being abused. And so that's the thing that allowed me to truly forgive my mother and begin to really heal. But it took, again, 4 years after she transitioned for me to be in a space to understand and receive that.
I think so much of your story I can relate to. It's like, oh my God. Especially like when you were saying, like, they say, oh, you're moody, or you're either sensitive or you have an attitude. First thing I've known in my experience, the doctor to say, oh, she's bipolar. And then when you're nervous because you think your mother gonna find out you got, and first thing they say, oh, she's paranoid, she has anxiety. You know, they have these easy, quick fixes for us. And a lot of times we don't realize that our parents, my story is pretty similar to yours. When our parents are enduring that type of abuse and affliction, we don't realize, because in the Black community, it goes unnoticed, or not unnoticed, it goes unspoken. We don't realize, and our parents probably don't realize, that they have these mental things going on as well, that they're suffering from, which makes them go through these cycles over and over again. And I just want to applaud you for being one to step up and say, hey, I'm going to do what I have to do to break this chain, you know, that generational curse, to break it and to step out and say, what can we do? So I'm wondering, is this why you went to write a book? Because you felt maybe somebody else was going through that? Is that part of the motivation, or what made you think, I'm going to write it? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So that experience within the mental health services let me know that, or made me think, which ended up being true, that I can't be the only person who, as I call, fell through the cracks. I wasn't, and I feel like I can use this word, I wasn't crazy enough or mentally disturbed enough to have the medication benefit me, because I was too aware, like, this medication is just fixing my symptoms. You ain't listening to what's wrong with me. So I didn't fit the proper protocol to be medicated and go sit down and be quiet somewhere. But then at the same time, something was wrong. So I always say I fell through the cracks. And at that time, I don't know how it is today because I'm not in the system, but at that time, I don't think they had enough acknowledgement or swallowed their ego enough to acknowledge that, okay, there are people who are having life challenges who don't need a pill and a weekly visit to talk about their past. That's not what they need. So because I didn't fit in that spectrum, because all the books and education that these people had, and let me be clear, I have no issue with clinical treatment or people who have bachelor's or master's or doctorates in the mental health field. Get it how you get it, because there's a group of people that need that. I'm just offering that there are more people as well, like myself, who just needed that TLC, who just needed that mentorship, who needed that direction, who needed that inspiration to say, sis, you know you ain't supposed to be doing this, right? Yeah, I know. Okay, so what do we need to do to help you? Because I'm not going to tell you to stop cutting. I'm not going to tell you that, because people have been telling you that. You already know it's wrong before somebody tell you it's wrong. So I'm not going to give you that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to help you find out what feelings or thoughts are happening that makes you think it's okay to do this to yourself. I'm not going to beat you up.
So what you sound like what you did is, instead of creating another problem, which is what a lot of people do, you created a solution.
That was my plan, to be a resource for those who either, like myself, fell through the cracks in the current mental health services spectrum, or to be a resource for people who've been down that road, like myself, the Zoloft, the psychiatrist, and they know that ain't it, but they know something needs to be done. So I wrote the book sharing the 8 steps that I used to beat depression without medication, in an effort just to be a resource to my brother or to my sister who's going through the same thing or has been through the same thing and who's moving how I moved. For 7 years, I hid my symptoms. So from 2005 to 2012.
7 is the number of complete.
Amen. Exactly. So, for 7 years, I still had those feelings. I still had those thoughts, but I didn't let it be known outside of my home. So I would put my kids to bed and I would literally be in my bedroom crying and struggling with the knife in hand because I knew not to do that. But that's all I knew what to do. I was never suicidal. I want to be really clear about that. I was never suicidal. I just wanted the pain to stop. And because I was not the type to just go pick fights or go burn something up or to go break into something or fight something that way, I always internalized it and said, what is it about me that's making this person treat me this way? Or why my daddy didn't love me? Or why my mama treated me this way? What was it about me? I always took ownership. Whether it was right or wrong, I always took ownership. So because I always thought it was me, I punished me. But people thought
I wonder what's the brain science behind mental illness, self-awareness, and healing. Like, where do we fit in there? Like, what is the connection there? How do we fit with using our own power to say this isn't working for me? Like, it's just not working.
What worked,
because I too
what worked for me
had suffered from it, and I decided no medicines for me either.
Exactly.
And I think this is my 5th year. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. What worked for me was I had to use a cliche term. I had to face some demons. I had to actually understand, okay, this quadrant does have to do with me, but this quadrant here, these people did this to me. Now, why did I let them do that? Or why did I stay? Or why was it okay? Why did I keep making excuses? What inside of me I had to fix? And to be honest, no matter how good I looked on paper, no matter the kind of car I drove, how nice my house looked, how much money I made, I had to face the reality I truly didn't love myself. I could make the package look pretty. I did that all day. But inside, I didn't love myself. And that was one of the hardest, most devastating revelations to come to. I broke down and cried for 2 weeks straight because I was trying to figure out, why don't I love myself? I take showers every day. I lotion, I put my smell goods, all the external things. What you mean I don't love myself? I'm me. I'm Joy's daughter. What you mean? And I really had to understand that, oh no, sis, you got to break this all the way down. If we strip the story of Job, if I strip you from everything external, the only thing left is you. Yeah. So I literally got stripped of stuff, and I figuratively got stripped of things. So when I got broken down to my basic bare components, there was nobody left there but me. There wasn't nobody else.
Yeah, you standing in the Garden of Eden with the angel standing saying, you can't come in, you just naked. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Vulnerable and just open but then within that came power though. It came to realization that, okay, at the end of the day, I'm all I got. At the end of the day, I can pray to the cows come home, but faith without works is dead. Yeah, so I can do all this praying, but if I'm not doing the work that I need to do to heal, I'm going to still be by myself, naked and vulnerable and feeling guilty and unloved.
And I believe that's what Lady Bounce was saying. Yeah, where she was saying you can't just pray. We can't just pray.
Exactly.
We have to actually do some things. Like
exactly.
We have to actually get out and make ourselves accountable for healing.
Yep, huge advocate of prayer. So let's be clear. I'm just also an advocate of you got to do the work. Point blank and period. Yeah. You can pray. But while you're praying, get that work done.
Like,
absolutely. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but I realized I was going over the peak of actually loving myself when a fly entered my home, and I wasn't angry to smash it with something. I literally was trying to help the fly get out of my house. That's when that light bulb came on and said, once you get to the point of actually loving yourself, you automatically show love to everything else. Now, that don't mean all the flies are welcome in my house. Let's be clear. That's not what I'm saying. You can't have a fly party in my house. What that means is, instead of me out of anger chasing you around and get out my house and throwing every shoe and magazine at you because I ain't had no fly swatter, that's anger. Watch when people just do everyday things how they do it. If they do it with angry energy, there's some healing that needs to be done. Because ain't no way I should allow a fly in my house to take me from 0 to 100 and I got an attitude. I'm fussing at my kids. I'm answering the phone with an attitude. There's no way. It's bigger than the fly. So that's why I said when I got to the point where I wanted to just let the fly out of my house versus spill his guts all over the windowsill, that's when I had that big epiphany moment. Like, oh, this is what love is. This is what pure, unadulterated love is. I don't mean I gotta like you or that I gotta enjoy being around you, but I don't wish you any harm. I don't wish you any ill will because I see you in me. So now that I love me, I see you and me, and now I love you too.
This is exactly why I'm so grateful for Lady Bounce and her coming up, even her and creating the idea of this podcast. And that's what the fly is, the first love yourself with us. Like, it is something, it's empowering to love yourself. And once you love yourself, you want to go and share that love with somebody else. Chime in on that, Lady Bounce, because I can't speak for you.
Hey, I was just sitting back, like, I'm just like listening to it all and taking it all in, and it really is like amazing information. But you know, like Slate was saying, it's fly with us because we are taking this journey together. We're still learning every day how to love ourselves through all of the different things that we go through all of the hats that we wear as women, and you know, being Black women especially. So we have our own extra set of hats and head wraps and scarves and all of these things that other people just don't have. So definitely, you know, that daily practice of loving yourself, because sometimes I don't love myself. Sometimes I don't like myself. And I have to own that and then do the work that comes with that, with loving myself and owning those thoughts. Like, I own my thoughts and I got to clean up my mess too.
Yes, absolutely. And they can be done together. Sometimes we're mistaken into thinking it's an either or. No, they can be done simultaneously. Let's get into it. Like, no, you don't get to pick and choose. Do it all together as a package. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I like it. So as we get ready to wrap this up, you know, tell us, mental health is sexy.
It is, Hunty. It is. It is. So what had happened was, so when we think about the word sexy, we think about it being something that's alluring, attractive, or desirable. So where we're talking about a mate, where we're talking about a car, a job, a credit score, a house, when we say something is sexy, it has a positive energy to it, and it's something that come wind, rain, or storm, we want to get that thing, right? So I said mental health needs to be just like that. There's people who will break their neck and go to the gym 3 a.m, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because they want to have a certain physical physique that they think is sexy, or that the person that they want to attract think is sexy. I'm gonna need for mental health to be on that level, point blank and period. So I put together the words mental health is sexy simply because I want mental health and the attainment of it to be alluring, attractive, and desirable. And when I made this brand, I made it for 3 key components. 1, to change the narrative around mental health. So again, I want you to think that it's sexy. I'm changing how you talk about it. I want to influence the way mental health services are being delivered. Because again, I fell through the cracks of the traditional mental health services spectrum. So it's time for us to have a conversation about alternative and holistic ways to heal, which in turn improves your mental health. And then the third component is, which is very standard, is to erase the stigma around mental illness. We have to stop making it taboo. We have to make it a regular conversation. And we have to understand too that sometimes what's called mental illness is situational. That doesn't mean because, you know, I have this issue right here that I'm gonna have it forever and ever, amen. I don't subscribe to that. Let me figure out a way, or help me find a way that I can heal and overcome this. And an analogy I use to help people understand that this is a journey. If a person was obese and they had surgery, they ate better, drank more water, start certain habits, and they lost 400 pounds, something dramatic, because I have to make a dramatic example. That doesn't mean that because they've attained their ideal weight, that person isn't inside of them that want to eat 20 Big Macs and drink 5 liters of Coke and all the cupcakes and donuts. That person is still there. What's happening is, though, they're aware of their thought patterns. So when those thoughts creep up, they have counter thoughts to keep them productive and to keep them on track. So that's why it's a journey. You don't never reach a goal and then say, okay, I'm done. I ain't gonna exercise no more. I'm gonna start drinking more pot. I'm gonna go back to my same habits because I reached what I wanted to reach. No, you have to consistently every day make a decision to maintain. And I teach people, if you can at least 51% of the time, that's majority. If you can at least 51% of the time transform your harmful thoughts into healthy thoughts, you win at this game of mental health. Point blank and period. Now, of course, you don't want to stay at 51. You want to keep increasing. Right. But at least majority of the time, when that thought comes up to act irrational, that thought comes up to be anxious, that thought comes up to harm yourself, that thought comes up to punch somebody in the face, just take a deep breath and think a replacement positive thought and move accordingly. So that's why mental health self-care routines are important as well. So my book itself teaches the 8 steps that I use to take charge of my mental health. But then after that, I also teach a program to show you how to maintain the things you learned in this book. Because I can teach you how to do it. But if you don't apply it or maintain it, exactly. The next time something big happens, you're going to revert back to what this book going to go out the window. You're going to go back to do what you want to do. Unless you have a system in place to maintain the new ideas that you just learned.
I like it. Well, I told you, I got your book.
Yes, you did. Yes.
I'm excited, and I'm working through it. I'm like, I don't really want to write in it though, because I'm like, I want to go back and do it again. Write in it,
right?
In pencil, then I can erase it and go back and redo it. So I've been writing my answers on regular paper and just sticking them in the page. Yes. I'm like, I don't want to write it just yet.
Very good, very good. That's why in the list of supplies you say get a journal.
Yes.
Because you can do that separately, just like you said. So very good. And I'm glad that you brought that up. The reason why I have the brief exercises at the end of each chapter is because I want people to be able to readily apply the information they just read. We're not just going to read it and move on to the next chapter. I need us to take a moment and apply, practice, and learn what we just learned, and then move on to the next chapter.
Coach V, before we tie this all together in our pretty little bow, thank you for making mental health sexy. I tried to change my diagnosis too. Like, okay, I'm not bipolar. I said, I'm just a little sensitive. And then I said, I'm not angry or I'm not schizophrenic. I'm an actress, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm in character, honey. Yes.
Whatever works to get you through. But I love that you said you want them to read it, you want them to learn it, to experience it, and then to actually apply it. And about if you can tie it up in a pretty bow in about 1 minute or so, what would you say for this week or for this week? Something that somebody can do as self-care for their mental health and well-being this week. What if you had a tip, what would you say? What would you give?
I think the biggest thing you could do is take time for yourself. You know, a lot of people say, oh, the quarantine set me down. Don't let that be the reason. Find 15 minutes a day for yourself. So that means train the kids, train the husband, train the wife, train the dog. That these from 5 to 5:15 don't bother me. The house ain't burning down, or somebody ain't bleeding. Let me have my time. Whether you watch a cartoon, whether you sit quiet and meditate, whether you take a bath, 15 minutes a day to yourself can help restore your peace, your balance. And if you practice your breathing while doing that, then that opens up clarity and for you to receive answers to things that are troubling you outside of your 15 minutes. But we gotta get in the habit. Yes, we gotta get in the habit of making time for ourselves every day. No excuses.
And that gives you time to be with to the God of their understanding if they believe the Most High. That's good. That's good. And the quarantine gives them 15 minutes. So thank you for our self-care assignment for the week. Self-care assignment for this week is straight from Coach V. Take 15 minutes for yourself. Don't blame the quarantine because the quarantine just gave you 15 minutes to yourself.
Absolutely.
How about it?
Absolutely.
So at this time, we're going to move it on over to I love this Sparks. I get to play with all the sounds in my head. Brain science. Take it away, Lady Bounce.
All right, so for this week's episode, we've talked about self-care. We've talked about mental health care and things like that. So I'm going to break down the 4 major components of self-care. It's your physical. That's one. Moving that body, the way you breathe. That's important. Exercise, the way you eat. Your emotions, your heart, to love and care and be in a loving relationship with yourself and others around you. Psychological, This is all about your mind. You want that mind to learn, to think, and to grow as much as possible. And your spirit. You got to get that spirit together. So connect with your essence, your purpose, and your meaning for life. Not anybody else's meaning for life, but your meaning for life. And as always, reflective journaling is important. We've talked about that many times on the show, about that gratitude journal. That is so, so important. But the biggest thing that you could do for your mental health is to continue to fly with us and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud,
Anchor,
your favorite podcast. And you can find Coach V at coachv.com, or you can Google her if you just don't even remember her whole website. But she is on Facebook, on the YouTube. She is everywhere. Coach,
yes.
We appreciate you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes. And may I please just say the website is coachvmp.com.
coachvmp.com.
Yes.
Okay.
coachvmp, yes, .com.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm Lady Bounce.
And I am A Slate.
And we out of here.
Peace.
Yeah.
Yay.